Hey, my name's Cody. I'm here at the Sunday performance of the beautiful Williams Lake Stampede. I just wanted to give a nice animal athlete tour, teach these fine people about what we do, how we operate in the back, and how a general rodeo runs on the daily basis. My name's Cody. I'm one of the Cowboys. We're from 150 mile house out of town here. Most of the livestock here we own. We got a nice little ranch piece of property side of town. This is what we do for a living. So we'll just kind of go over some basics of what we use for the equipment at rodeo, how we operate, how we handle our livestock. We'll get a chance to kind of watch them work through some livestock today, and hopefully they can keep their swear words in the back today to a minimum. So we're going to start off with a quick kind of background. We've been doing this for quite a while to kind of help educate people about rodeo. There's a lot of misconceptions about what happens at rodeo, what goes on, how the animals are treated. So we'll start with some of the bucking horses here today. So these horses, as you can see, that front horse is a little bit lame, but these horses have the easiest lifestyle out of any horse probably ever. So if you're a working horse on a ranch, you're working every day. You're getting up every day. You're probably dragging cows around, checking cow herds, out on the range, stuff like that. You're working every day. These bucking horses, they work about 4 days a year. And the rest of the time they spend in a large pasture, grain-fed. They're all nice and fat, nice and sassy, slicked off. They look real good this time of year. But these animals get treated, they have the nicest, easiest lifestyle you could possibly ever have out of any piece of livestock. And one of the things that we do use for these horses, is so in the bronc ride, we'll start with the old bronc riding event today. This is a bronc halter. You guys will see it out in the arena blocks today. In the bronc riding, there's a bronc rein and a shank, they call it, that's used. Riders run it through their pinky finger, kind of like that, hold it about like that. It's obviously a lot skinnier. And it goes to this ring here. So how it works in the saddle bronc ride, you're in a saddle, you want to be able to lift up like this to sit your butt down. And they base that off of this, but due to some of the pressure that's on the horse's nose, this is the equipment that's used, as you guys can see. Pretty about as soft as you get, so you guys are welcome to kind of have a feel when we get done here. The saddle bronc riding is what we like to call the finesse sport. Guys, it's a lot of technical skill involved. There's a lot of timing, spur motion, the way that the horse moves, how you react to the horse's movements. It's a very finesse-styled sport. The other horse event that we participate in with our horses is the bareback riding, and that is not easy on the body. It is for big, tough, dumb guys that don't really. It's tough on the body. You see lots of guys with bareback riding, bad elbows, bad shoulders. You see lots of guys, bareback riders, they're the most core, center-driven, built guys you've ever seen. They are built like, for lack of better words, brick shit houses. They are stronger than hell, but it is a very physically demanding sport. Basically how that works, unfortunately I don't have a bareback rig in, they're pretty expensive. The Cowboys provide that on their own. But it's basically a suitcase handle with a leather pad on the bottom and a latigo. And that's all you got. And the glove actually has a special knob on the side, so your hand can't come out. So once your hand goes into a bareback rigging, it don't come out. So if you get bucked off or in a jam in the bareback riding, it's a real wreck. But the equipment used for our end for that is a flank. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what a flank is, what its purpose is. So does everyone here kind of have a general understanding of what being jumper cabled is? You kind of younger kids kind of know it's when someone walks up behind you, they poke you right here and you kind of jump ahead. This flank strap has the same effect, right? So there's a lot of misconceptions. Oh, it goes around some sensitive areas possibly of a horse, or there's objects in him to make them kick out. Nothing like that. This just simply goes around essentially this part of the horse's body, which is just in front of their hips, kind of just in that little shallow part, about a foot ahead of its tail. And that just sits around there. This goes underneath where their bellies are a little bit softer, a little bit more sensitive. Due to this latigo, which is a very, very nice attachment, you can leave it loose, which keeps the animals comfortable in the chute. So that way they don't have to pull it tight as the horse is about to go. And you want him to buck, and you want him to kick out and have that explosive motion. Just as the chute gate opens, you'll tighten it up a little bit, pull it tight, have the sheepskin basically pulled into their flank strap right here, they don't want to have it on, they try to kick it off. That's how a horse bucks. So you guys will see that lots today in the horse riding events. And to take them off, it's just as simple as when the pickup man comes around, it's just a simple pull latch, just strip the latch. Super simple equipment, super safe equipment. You know, that's our livestock is our livelihood. That's, you know, if we have horses that are injured, bulls that are injured or in bad shape, not suitable, it hurts our business. Not only for the whole sport of rodeo, because it's not a great look when you have animals that look like that, but it hurts our business because this is our livelihood. You know, we rely on these animals the same way the animals rely on us to feed them and make sure they're well taken care of. That we rely on them to provide for us. That's our living. That's how we make our money. That's how we go down the road. So we do about 50, 60 rodeos a year, probably throughout BC and Alberta. We got about 100 horses that are just meant for bucking. That's it. That's their only job. From the time that they're born to the time that they will eventually pass away 30 years later, that is their only job. As we get into the bull riding, the bulls are a little bit different. We like to compare bulls to teenage boys. They don't think much, and they like to fight each other, and they sleep a lot. That's about how you can sum up a bull's life. That's a bull's lifestyle is about that. Yep. And they all have interesting personalities. Horses have a lot more personality than bulls, but bulls are the same. They still have a lot of personality. Everything's individual. You know, you approach every animal with a lot of respect because you have to. But the bulls are a little bit different. So horses, you can get 20 years of a bucking horse. You know, a good horse will live till 30. You start bucking them at 5. I can get a good 20 years of a really solid bucking horse. Bulls, you can only get about 6-7 years out of them. You have to kind of wait until they're 2 or 3 to kind of start bucking them. And you know, bulls' lifespans are only 12 or 13 to begin with. And I mean, they live a real good lifestyle. So we see bulls quite often that at the 15. But by the time they're kind of 10, 12, their bodies are starting to break down to a point where we can't really buck them. And then what we use, this is a flank strap as well. Just a different style of one. This is only used for bulls and or cows in the steer riding. So horses' skin, quite a bit fairer, quite a bit thinner, quite a bit easier to damage. That's why you see, anytime there's a bucking event in rough stock with horses, that's why you'll always see tons of sheepskin, well taken care of leather, no sharp objects. Bulls, a little different. We've had bulls at the house. Eventually, when they passed away, their hide will be that thick. You need a pretty high caliber something to hurt them. These flank straps, same thing, nice and soft, nothing to them. You just tie it up, same thing, same concept. Just goes around the bull's flank strap, comes around, tie a knot, away you go. Super simple, super effective, and a super safe way for the animals to do what they enjoy doing without hurting themselves. Hey, are you guys almost done there with these ponies?
Half the herd.
Right. No, that's all good. I should see how close you were to get some of the bulls in.
We'll take them on a tour down there, and then we'll bring the bulls pretty quick.
Ooh, that could.
Go show me cattle liners. Bud?
No, I won't do that to you guys. No, but then as you guys can see in the background here, we're handling the stock. So this is a process that happens every day. We come in every day before the rodeo. This has to be done. What you're seeing here is each pen is probably a different event and probably a different size. So as you guys can see, there's 2 sides in the chutes. It affects, how they buck is dependent on which side they come out. Each animal likes it dependingly. So my father, who's got some pretty major OCD, has every one of them memorized, which side they come out, what their brand numbers are, what delivery, we call them deliveries, for which side they come out. And you don't base it off the back. Like, so from this way, that would be a right hand delivery, that's a left hand delivery. But that's backwards. You consider it from the front. Right? So a right hand delivery is actually looking at it from the left, and it's opposite. But that truly affects, you'll see lots of horses, which way they go depends on how the gate opens, which way a bull will spin depends on how the gate opens, how fast the gate goes matters, how loud the latch is, that matters. You'll have horses that'll jump and get kind of a little bit worried. As you guys can see, these horses are nice and big, fat, good shape. Good cut, Haley. So these horses are all, fantastically taken care of, and what you guys are watching is just the very end of the process, like the last step before rodeo. So when we're at home, we do the similar process before we load rodeos. We do this in a much larger scale. We have a pretty large operation at home, but here you're watching about 20, 40 horses being sorted, somewhere between there, depending on a perf size each day. At home, we're sorting 100, 150 at a time, and it gets to be quite the large project. As you can see, the more that you handle them, the more calm they get. Obviously, if you go out and you pull a wild horse off the range, it's not going to go so smooth. There'll be a lot more clanging in the fences as the horse tries to get out. These horses, they're domesticated. This is what they love to do. This is what they know. As you guys can see, they're quite docile and loving it. I was hoping they'd put one good horse in over there so we have a good pet with them, but we'll see what happens. The bulls, on the other hand, they are always asses. There is no such thing as that nice of a bull. Does not matter if he's tame, doesn't matter if he's a 4-H bull. At some point, bulls have that snap factor that you gotta always approach with caution. And you'll see, we'll stumble down this way a little bit. So we'll look at some of these bulls' horns, like a better information on what I'm like. You can see on these bulls, look at the horses, you dang ponies. Their horns are not sharp. So regulation rodeo, their horns have to be tipped down to about a toonie size to prevent any, any impacts of penetration, any gouging, anything like that. Not only for their own safety, because bulls love to fight each other, so it protects our own livestock from each other, and it protects the riders, in the arena. The nice thing, so can anyone tell me what the original point of horns on cows and bulls were?
Bullfighting?
Oh, no. Think of like 1,000 years or like 10,000 years ago when cows are first kind of conforming. What, think of how does a dog cool down? Think of that when it comes to horns. So horns, original cows were all longhorns. And when they were living back in the Sahara, out of northern Africa, back when human civilization was just kind of starting out, they didn't really know how to cool themselves. So they adapted horns and long ones. So then it'd pump the blood out into the horns, it'd self-cool itself when it got away from the body heat, and then it'd pump itself back in. And that's the original cooling system of a cow or bull. I mean, nowadays we're looking at hundreds of different breeds of cows, different cross breeds. We don't necessarily have that issue anymore with some of their heat restrictions. So you see a lot more fair-skinned cows nowadays. So these are not longhorns, unfortunately. These are a little bit of longhorn. These are Mexican Brammer longhorn crosses. So they're a little bit thinner skinned. The Brammer part of them makes them super athletic. Brammer bulls are the craziest thing to probably ever touch planet Earth. If you had just a purebred Brammer, good luck getting them in to get them in the rodeo. But if you can dumb them down with a little bit of longhorn, a little bit of Mexican, a little bit of Coriani, you can dumb them down, get them to a more reasonable level where they're workable. Oh, don't be so sassy, big king. As you can see, all the horses got a personality of their own as well with their ears back. When their ears are back, that generally means that they're not feeling it. They're not excited. So all these horses are bucking horses and come from a wide range of things, right? So these bucking horses, you'll see some of them have NCs on their front shoulder. Those come from a guy named Neil Campbell up out of Fairview, Alberta. We purchase a few from him every year. Raises really nice horses. A lot of these paints, these real cool colored horses, they come from him. Some of these horses we've raised ourselves at home. Some of them have been former roping horses. Some of them are wildies that come off from out west. So some of the reserves out west, some of the guys catch them for us, and we buy them off of them. Like some of these horses, before they came to town, never seen people before. Eventually the rodeo business is probably the perfect business for them when they come out of that situation. But and they come from a wide bulls. There's only one reason for a bull, and that's rodeo. There's other than that, breeding bulls, rodeo bulls. That's it. Horses, there's such a wide variety of uses for them. It's tough to find. You basically have to raise your own, or find a provider to raise them. It's pretty deep yesterday. Hey, don't kick him. Be nice. But no, that's as you guys can see. But then when we talk about tipping their horns down to a tuning size, it's the equivalent of us clipping our nails, right? So there is a good solid chunk of blood flow within a bull's horn. So this grayer bull on the left side, as you guys can see, his horn's cut down a little bit more. He's just coming off a horn infection, which we doctor those by unfortunately having to knock off more of their horns. So when bulls fight each other, they bruise the inside of their horns. But there's nowhere for that pressure to go. It's all encased. And then horns actually run through the entire skull of the bull. It's one solid, basically, tube right into their sinus cavity. And it's a really hard thing. And once that flesh starts to rot from those bruises, it eventually will go down into their skull and it can cause death. So unfortunately, you have to dig down a little bit deeper into the bull's horns, cut that stuff out. But in most cases, like this white bull here, you see how it's a little bit more solid at the end. That's the equivalent of tipping your nails. Clipping your nails in the bathroom at home. There's no nerves out there. There's no blood flow. They can hardly feel it. It's an excellent way to just keep them safe from themselves, keep us safe from them. Well, we'll get to watch some big ones coming here now, I think. Just perfect timing. But, and then same thing with bulls, they come from a bit of everywhere, and you'll see different types. Brammers, like I said, wild and crap, and they can't really survive any intense cold. You will see brammers every once in a while. You take them way up north. You try to win them in Grand Prairie or up in the Yukon. They just freeze to death. They're a Mexican style bull, a real deep south. They have real fair skin. So when we run a couple in here today, well, that's a dead mouse right there. Gross. So when we run this few in today, I'll point a few out that are different types. And you'll see a few out that are out tonight in the rodeo performance. And you're gonna get to see what I mean. So brammers, you'll see. We had a brammer out last night, if anyone was at the first two rodeo performances. He's got real big horns. And you'll watch his skin when he runs by, his skin is loose. It's like where someone wearing, it's like a guy like me wearing a quadruple XL t-shirt. Like that's what their skin is like. It's very fair, very thin, very loose. The other bulls, more longhorn style bulls, they got a little bit tighter, harder bodies, but they're not quite as catty and athletic. So you kind of try to mix a little bit of the both, try to get a perfect rodeo bull that's athletic enough that he can buck, but calm enough that we can handle him without hurting him or ourselves. And then you talk about travel, so a trailer like this horse trailer right here, that safely and comfortably holds 6 horses. You can get 7 on there if you're in a real bad pinch somewhere. We were away at a couple of rodeos a couple years ago, got evacuated to wildfires. I think we got 8 into it that time just because there was nowhere else to go. And then so in Canada, after some rules changed, so this trailer back here directly behind us with kind of the cargo doors on the back, that's what we call a straight liner. There's only one deck, that's it. It's got one layer to it, and that's what you legally have to haul horses in Canada. They changed that law a few years ago. The other one on the left, that's got 2 decks in it. So there's 2 layers to that, each one about 5'8", 5'10" in height. Oh, here they come. And you cannot legally haul horses on that trailer anymore. You have to just haul bulls, cows, pigs, chickens, livestock of that nature. If you want to haul horses, you can't anymore. It's got to be on that. So, these bulls were all raised right here in Williams Lake. So this is more of a longhorn style with a little bit of brammer in them. These bulls here with the humps, those got more brammer in them. So you'll see the ones with the humps, their skin moves around quite a bit more. We get the horns on, we got nice big horns, nice good food. We're under some gorgeous colors on Monday. Hey! No, and the biggest thing about these critters when you're handling them and being around them and stuff is you have to have confidence, right? They're just like anything else. They're more scared of you than we are of them, even though it doesn't feel like that sometimes when you look at the size of them. But they can sense your fear. So I'm lucky enough to get the chance to fight bulls for a living. I had to handle these every day. As long as you can walk in, we call it faking it until you make it, because let's be honest, no one's really fear-free of a bull of that size when you stand in front of them. But if you can fake it, even the bull will believe it. I just keep faking it, Dustin. I just keep faking it. So we'll stumble on back this way and we'll get a closer look at some of these bulls as they kind of come into the pen. Ones that aren't too ridiculous. That's a really good question. So She asked a very good question about the draw and how the contestants get their stock. So it depends on each association and where you kind of go. So this is a Canadian Professional Rodeo Association sanctioned rodeo. It's the only pro rodeo governing body that we have in Canada. There's about 50, 60 rodeos throughout Canada that we do, that it happen each year underneath this governing body, with the major finals in Red Deer, Alberta every year. Used to be in Edmonton. And but for this rodeo in particular, the draw happens about a week in advance. So we call this time of the year Cowboy Christmas. There's about 30 rodeos between Amarillo and Williams Lake that have over 15,000 for the competitors to win in about 10 days. So they have to pick and choose, what rodeos can I make, which rodeos can I actually legitimately travel to, and which ones make the most sense for me moving forward. So this rodeo, we drew about a week ago for it. Ponoka's on right now at the same time, crossing Alberta. Reno Rodeo just finished last week. There's some major rodeos going on. Greeley Stampede just finished down in Colorado. So Cowboys have to really pick and choose where they go. That's why when you see, so yesterday, we only ended up with 2 bull riders. There was 8 entries, but between guys breaking down, when you're getting on that many bulls, that many horses in 8 days, your body breaks down, injuries happen. Lots of guys are actually flying over here because they're unable. Ponoka. Lots of guys are in Ponoka that try to get over here and then back to Ponoka because the short goes in Ponoka today. So if you're able to ride one this week, you made it back today in Ponoka. So lots of guys actually rode in Ponoka Friday. They're here yesterday. They go back to Ponoka for today, and then probably down to the States for the rest of the week. But, oh yeah. So this bull right here, just a quick, his name is Lotto, because if you guys notice, his number is 649. Lotto 649. And so everyone brands them a little bit differently, but so the first number that you see in our brands, that's the model year number that they were born. So 6, this bull was born in 2016. So that makes this bull already, 7, 8 years old almost. 49, the secondary numbers, usually there's 2 or 3 secondary numbers, that's the cow's number. That's his mother's number. Then we always have a general keep track of what our bloodlines are, what came out of what, how it got there.
Oh, you got that rope flag?
Yep. Perfect throw. But then, thank you. But then this, so you see this big white, then that big white bull over there. That's one of the biggest rodeo-sized bulls that you guys, I've ever seen in my 25 years of life, and that most people will ever probably see. Lots of rodeo bulls kind of weigh in about 1,600 pounds. That one weighs over a ton. So when he jumps on you, you feel every bit of it. But for more answer about your entry question, and then you go to the amateur rodeos, and those entries are done about 4 days in advance. There's a lot less of those rodeos. They're closer together. We have our own amateur association here within BC, the British Columbia Rodeo Association. It's only about 1 rodeo a week with that, so Cowboys can always make it depending on their own personal life choices. Ooh yeah, feeling frisky. But and then there's private rodeos as well. So we have a rodeo here in Williams Lake in April, the Williams Lake Indoor Rodeo, and it's an open rodeo, which means there's no governing body, there's no sanctions, there's no rules, and we technically run the rodeo. So for some of that, we did the draw about a week in advance, and the last day we did the draw that morning, 4 hours before the rodeo. Because you want to see who's around, who's available, who's actually going to show up that day. You never really know after a good barn dance, is my bull rider really going to show up today? And what shape is he going to be in if he does show up? But that's a really good question about the entry systems. Have we got any more questions here today?
How many bull riders do we have on the docket for today?
On the docket for today, actually, we're going to get the chance to... Jared Parsonage is in town today. He did not make it back to Ponoka. He is a Canadian champ, NFR qualifier, real big name in the bull riding community. Local guy or not local, but he's a Canadian. There's actually some local boys up today. Eric O'Flynn of O'Flynn Roofing from Quesnel. He's up today in the bull riding. Kyle Frizzy from 100 Miles out today. Mixed with that, I think there's about 6 or 7 out today. We already got the turnout. There's 3 or 4 turnouts, but we still ended up with 6 or 7. Plus we brought the mini bulls back today for another go. So we'll get to watch some more mini bulls. That seems to be a crowd favorite everywhere that we go. I've yet to take him anywhere and not have a lot of positive feedback about that event. That's guy can do something. You guy can do 90 points in the bull riding, and the guy that's 44 on a mini bull is still gonna get a louder cheer. It's just how it goes. But no, that's about the extent of our tour here this morning. We got to see some bulls. If you guys got any more questions, or
I'm sure there's some questions regarding like the calf.
Oh,
how the calves, if they're virtual or not virtual.
That's a very good question. And then there's different rules to that. So in this association, the calves have to be weaned. So the calves in this association basically are orphans, for better or worse. They have no mothers, or if they do have a mother, they're only on it periodically, kind of during the week, kind of a split custody kind of deal, we'll call it, between the contractor and the cow. And that just kind of ensures that they're not too frisky, too wild, too hard to handle. Makes them a little bit more easy to haul when you're taller than that kind of long a distance. Here in BC, we prefer to use still sucklings. You know, calves that are still in their cows. It makes them healthier. They gives them a better chance of growing bigger, growing stronger. When you wean calves, it kind of sets them back a year. Their heifer steer age, it kind of is 2 years long instead of just 1 year. It kind of sets them back. We don't love doing that, but it's part of this association's rules. But here in BC, we mostly use just straight. We just actually use straight Brammer calves because we like to watch how crazy they are. But there are rules that are in place to kind of stop, that are supposed to stop calves' injuries. So how you control your slack. So when you see a guy step out, rope his calf, which way he pitches his slack is which way that calf will snap around. So calf ropers, you don't want your calf to fall down. You don't want to pull him over. That makes my time slower because I got to get him up. You want to real good calf ropers. You watch Corey Solomon or some of those guys in the States. They jump out, quick one here. They pitch their slack down and away this way. The calf gets turned around, not over backwards, doesn't get jerked upside down. You don't see them jerked over. They just get snapped around. They step out, bang, it's done. You know, calf roping probably is honestly realistically the most realistic ranch style event that we see. I mean, unfortunately, we get the odd guy that doesn't treat the livestock very well, gives it a not great reputation. I mean, I'm a big fan of the event because it's the most realistic ranch style. You know, it's something that you see every other working ranch. Go to Douglas Lake, go to some of those other cattle places. You see that every day. It's just part of the industry. We call it the 10 and 2 rule, whereas if a calf comes up between basically 10 and 2 on the clock, you're disqualified, flagged out, and usually fined for your mistreatment of animals. And that's our kind of way to kind of help give our cattle a chance. And like I said, there are livelihoods. We need them to be able to compete. And I mean, it's not an event that you love to see done on your animals, but it's something that happens every day at the ranch, and done the right way, it's a safe event. Unfortunately, it's not always done the right way, but 90% of the time you see really good guys pitch their slack the right way, handle them well, and treat them with respect. That's the biggest thing. Most cowboys forget that sometimes. It's their livelihoods too. The animals that they're roping, the animals that they're touching, it's their livelihoods too. If you're not treating them with respect, you're probably not going to have a long enough career to make a livelihood out of it. So,
by your livelihood, you're getting paid to have your animals here, so you have the best animal here.
That's exactly, and
the most money for you.
That's exactly, and and it's our reputation too. You know, when we come to town, we take a lot of pride in the stock that we've raised. You know, we don't like to. You don't want to see starving stock or stock that's mistreated or stock that's crippled. Or, I mean, same as a regular athlete, injuries do happen. You know, to be honest, most of our injuries are bulls fighting each other at the house, which again, teenage boys. But you know, at rodeos, not often do you see many injuries at a rodeo. And unfortunately, last night we saw a horse tweak its back. Thankfully, that horse got up. He's actually going to be okay. He's out back there resting there today. He's actually right, I can see him right. He's the first horse behind that gate right there, that white gate. That's the horse that was injured yesterday. So he was injured yesterday. Thankfully, we got a great couple of vets. We got a great couple of sports med guys that were able to get that handled. You really couldn't wait to get through there, eh? You had a question too as well, so I totally...
Yeah. Do you guys actually own the mini bulls?
We do not. So there's... Our neighbor does. They're from the 50. McNulty's own them. That black truck there is theirs. But they're our neighbors in the 50. And that was just kind of a newer deal in the last couple of years, just because their kids were all of a sudden kind of getting to be that age where they're wanting to try some of that stuff. And I don't really want to put them on a big cow when they're 6 years old. There's no need to do that. But one of the things that we're seeing with a lot of cowboys too is career longevity is really being increased in the last kind of 5 years. We've learned a lot more in the last 10 years just in general about how concussions affect cowboys and other athletes. You see the movie CTE. It's a very prevalent injury in our world, and unfortunately it took a few tragedies for us to kind of figure that out. But it's a very prevalent thing in our world, so the care that we're taking of not only the four-legged animals is getting much better as time goes forward, but the care for our two-legged athletes is getting substantially better. So with that being said, we don't want to put kids basically Rhett's size here. I don't need to put him on a 1,400 pound cow. That's a little bit overkill. So we kind of tried to find something in the middle. Where's the middle ground where he can get his chops off, he can get his licks in on something that's qualified, something that gives him a challenge, but isn't going to hurt him in any way, or at least if it does, it's going to be a minor injury. So we came out with Dexter bulls, they're called, which are mini bulls. They're dwarf, basically, is what they are. But they're cuter than shit, and they're the perfect little size. And they do a great, excellent job. They take a good job. They're gentle. They take care of our little cowboys that we got. And it's a nice little confidence boost. And then all of a sudden the kids get to be 8 or 10, and they're getting old enough to get on some of those bigger stuff. And they've already been on. They have a general understanding of how to get on, how to approach the animals, how to respect them, how to get on them, how to be in the chute safely, and how to eventually get yourself away safely.
So that they're just like dwarfs and bulls, does that mean they can still be aggressive? Or
Yeah, they can still be aggressive. We call them knee killers if they are aggressive, because, oh boy. But they can still be aggressive. We try not to let them, we try to kind of sift through to try to find some nicer ones, because kids are pretty small. I mean, he's not. So Rhett Atkinson here, he's from Hunter Mall. He fights the little bulls. So he's not afraid to jump in there with them. But there's no need to have them run them over every day if you don't have to. So we try to kind of sort through them. We had a few little mean ones there that Wade had for a while, but we kind of sifted through them and eventually kind of got down to a nice little pen of about 5 that are just real nice to handle, be around. They're not going to hurt nobody. But yeah, no, that's anybody else? Any other questions?
So did they run you over?
Yeah, this happened at the indoor rodeo here in town. I just had my shoulder rebuilt last week for the second time. There's a lot of things that happen in rodeo. Injuries tends to be one of them. It's not a sport for the faint of heart. That you kind of have to. You expect to be injured. So in my position, I fight bulls at a professional level. That's what I do for my career. But I expect 1 surgery a year. That's kind of my expectation. So in the last 6 years, I've had both my knees fixed. I've had my face rebuilt, shoulder done twice. Broken multiple ribs, sternum, toes, ankles. It's just part of the job. And the miles you put on, so that's my little black car there, the old rodeo wagon I call it. I put 170,000 kilometers on that car in just over 12 months. So you make a lot of miles. If you got some good friends, it's not that bad. If you got good music choices, it's not that bad. You got some decent podcast choices, it's not that bad. But if this is a job, whether you're stock contracting or bull riding or bullfighting or horse riding, they could not pay you enough to do it if you didn't love it. It's a job that if you did not love it and it was not your passion and someone came and offered you $10 million a year, you might do it for a year for the money, but after that you'd be smart enough to say, nah, it's not worth that. You have to truly love it. That's why it is, for better or worse, kind of a dying breed of sport. It's because the guys that kind of do this sport are generally pretty handy, but if you're pretty handy, you can probably make $60 an hour on the oil patch. So, and not beat yourself up and not spend your life in a hotel room. So last year we spent about 150 days in a hotel room, probably another 30 in a travel trailer, and I probably spent about 20 of them actually in my car. So you're looking at about 200 days a year not at home, at the minimum. That's a smaller rodeo season. That was our first year of COVID. This year I get to stay home a little bit more this year. I'm out with an injury, so I get to actually enjoy myself a little bit this summer. But most times I get a good summer like this season. You'll see Roy and my uncle. They'll spend 200 days this year on the road, if not more. And that's not including getting hay. We don't have enough big enough piece of property at home to put up enough hay. We can put up about 60% of what we need at home, but then we have to buy the rest. But there's nowhere else around here that you can buy from. So we have to haul it from either Grand Prairie, Dawson Creek, or Vanderhoof for about another 800 bales. Well, you can only get 40 bales on a truckload. So when you're hauling another 800 or 1,000 bales, you gotta go to Grand Prairie every time to get them. There's another, 20 days on the road, a lot of more miles, hauling hay so you can feed your horses and take care of them. That's one. So we found a way to keep our feed bill down. So horses, thankfully, are not teenage boys, and they are much smarter than teenage boys. They will eat snow in the wintertime to survive. You actually do not need to have a thawed, it's preferred to have a thawed water or a heated water tank. It's not necessary. Horses are smart enough, they will go out, they will eat snow, find a way to survive. Bulls, not so much. They just kind of die. So horses, we found a way. Hay and grain is much more cheaper produced up north in Fairview, Alberta, Grand Prairie, Dawson Creek, places like that. So actually a guy that we bought our cart off of originally to be able to do some of these rodeos, a guy named Rudy Ostrom, from this area originally, lives up there now. We actually winter all of our horses up there. So just north of Fairview, Alberta. So I don't know. We usually go after the Canadian finals. We'll kind of go to the Canadian finals and haul them up after, because that's in Red Deer. Makes it a little bit shorter of a secondary trip. Haul them up there, but it cut our feed bill down by about 50 grand a year, which was enough to make that worth it.
Yeah.
And they come back in real good shape. These horses are these are actually Duffy's horses from Alberta, but they come back nice and fat. They come back in good shape. They're well fed. They come up with nice big coats, and they're smart enough to survive. If we sent bulls up there, oh boy, they wouldn't like it very much. A longhorn or some of these more Mexican style bulls, they might do a little bit better. So this white bull here, he's more Brammer style. You can see this front, he's got a looser brisket, real loose skin. He's got real thin skin. He'd really struggle in anything below -25. Like he would really struggle unless he had some good tree cover with some buddies. He probably wouldn't make it. No. Well, thankfully these bulls are actually John Duffy's bulls, these two, as well as these 3 horses. And he's from Buck Lake, Alberta, right? Not that it's that much warmer there or that much more mountains or cover, but it's a little bit more, just enough more. That's exactly, just enough farther south to make it work. And they come from, it's actually really wet there. It's always muddy. It'll be 40 degrees there. Every time I go there, it's muddy. I don't know how it works, but that's just Buck Lake. But yeah, any other questions?
So when rodeo season starts, does the whole herd just travel for the rodeo season?
No, so we kind of base them off pens. We call them pens. So we have an A pen for rodeos like this. This is where you'll kind of see our A pen. And then how we get paid is also based off those pens as well. So we get paid off of every time the point of one of our animals leaves the chute. That's okay. So our A pen, every time that you want our best bulls out, that's going to be $500 every time that one of our bulls leaves the chute. And that's how we get paid. And then our B pen, okay, you want the B pen, you don't want guys to get killed off, you don't want the Top Gun stuff, then that's, $350. Then you want the C pen, the high school stuff, the little britches stuff that we use to dumb down, help train cowboys. That might be $175, $250. And then so we call that per gate. So that's what we charge per gate, and we kind of give them a group rate or whatever, depending on how many trips we get that week.
Because you obviously travel with a lot of extras.
That's one. So this rodeo, it takes about 7 full loads of stock to put this rodeo on. It takes probably about if you bucked everything once, and ran everything once, it'd take about 500-600 animals to get this rodeo done. So lots of these bulls. This Pinto bull in the back, he was out Thursday, and he's out again today. Lots of these 4-day, 3-day rodeos, you'll see lots of bulls and critters out one day off, on again the next day. And then you kind of give them 2 bulls. You can buck a lot more frequently. Their durability is a lot higher. You can buck them 2-3 times a month. Horses, not so much. You can get maybe a trip a month out of them in rodeo season. Rodeo season in Canada is only 4 or 5 months. So like some of these horses, they might only leave the ranch 4 times a year. The rest of it, they spend out on range, up in Fairview, out on range, getting grain fed. They live about the easiest life a horse could live. That's why they're always so fat.
Yeah.
But you know, the bulls, they get used a little bit more. But it took a lot of stock to get this rodeo done. There's probably 60 bulls on site. There's probably another 60, 70 horses. There's 40 cows out back, and then another 30 calves. There's a lot of livestock on site. So like that's just to get through this week from Thursday to today took us almost 45 bales.
So there's no repeats.
There,
Except for the bulls.
the bulls you can get a repeat, and there's a few horse repeats that are, but you can't repeat colts. They work themselves up so bad in the chutes usually that they're just completely torched come the next day. You get those prime of life horses, you can kind of get 2, maybe if you're on like a Calgary Stampede type rodeo, you might get 3 or 4 trips out of that horse in 2 weeks. But here you might get 2 trips in 4 days or 3 days. We have your prime of life horses. Other than that, it's generally just kind of 1 trip in the horse riding. Bulls, you can be a little bit more lenient with it, just because they're like teenage boys. They bounce. They bounce when they fall, and they always seem to get back up. So, any other questions? Yep.
What happens to the retired bulls?
So the retired bulls, it kind of depends on how good they were. So there comes a point in a bull's career where it either wants to keep bucking or it doesn't, and if it doesn't buck it, we just straight up take them to the auction market. Where they go after that is up to the buyer's discretion. For the most part, it's mostly hamburger. But you'll see the odd bull that'll get, lots of guys trade bulls around too. So you'll see lots of older bulls get traded around for breeding bulls for guys to build their programs off of, establish a good bloodline or change the current bloodline up a little bit. And lots of those bulls that were good enough to do that end up getting buried on the ranch they were raised on. So we actually have a little burial yard at our ranch behind our Uncle Earl's house. And there's about 10 or 15 bulls back there, another 10 or 15 horses that were famous for us, treated us real well, we treated real well, and so they will forever be a part of the ranch. And lots of guys do that with their better stuff. But lots of bulls, by the time they kind of hit 9, 10, 11, they're starting to kind of slow down. Really start to see them deteriorate quite a bit more. They don't eat as well. Their teeth start to fall out. That's just, like a prime of life bull really only lives to 10 or 12. So if you can get a bull to live until 12 and get a good 8 years of bucking them, that's a dang healthy bull. After that, you'll see a lot of them end up at the sale yards, and that's kind of how their lives end. Horses, you can get 20, 25 years out of, because horses live to be 30. So kind of start bucking them about 5 or 6, give them a bit of a chance to kind of grow up a little bit. There's no rush to get into the horse business because they live so long. There's horses that are, so that brown and white horse right there, I'm 25 years old, that horse is 25 years old. That horse was born in 1998. I was born in 1998, and he's still bucking. He's probably got another 2-3 years in him. We got horses at home that have extended, that are older than me, still bucking. And horses, it's actually illegal to, it's not illegal, but there's nowhere to send your horses at the end of their life anymore in Western Canada. So if you want your horse, so once they kind of hit the end of the career, they kind of just get turned out. And basically, you go out one day and they're just not breathing anymore, for lack of better words. That's just the nature of life. But they're lucky enough, most horses get to live their life out on they live the rest of their days out in a pasture somewhere, whether it's at our place, up in Fairview. But most horses get a real good chance to just enjoy the end days, enjoy retirement, run around, enjoy life. Any other questions?
How often do you have to maintain the
Ooh, that's a good question. So horses, we do once a year. Once every spring. So when we go up in the springtime to get them from Fairview, Alberta, there's a guy named Rocky Ross that he's from Alberta as well. He does all, basically there's 10 or 11 of us stock contractors in Canada that do it at this level, and he does kind of all of our horses every year. He's got a really fancy table that you load them into, and then the table squeezes the horses in and then turns sideways. Picks the whole horse up, turns them sideways, it just exposes their feet out. You can trim their feet. So we do our horses' feet once a year, once every spring. That's kind of it. Bulls, it depends. You'll kind of see a lot of different growth styles in bulls' hooves. You know, horses are pretty consistent. Bulls are kind of all over the place. Kind of depends on what you got for a breeding program, where the bull came from as far as like a geographical type of standpoint. But you'll see some bulls that you'll never touch their feet, and you'll see bulls that you have to trim their feet, you know, once a year. So it's kind of all over the place with some of the bovine stuff, but the horses are pretty consistently just 1 year.
Do you have someone available? Or is it hard to find?
It is hard to find. It's not hard to find guys. It's hard to find the equipment to do it. That's the biggest thing. Like lots of guys can do it because generally you can kind of just use basically an angle grinder or trimmers or a horseshoeing, you know, device or a quick sander. But it's the equipment that's the hardest part to find because you need to have something that you need to have a gentle horse where you can walk up and actually physically pick their feet up like you're shoeing them. Unfortunately, bucking horses ain't that gentle. So you got to have a table that's large enough, or you got to do it old school and trip them. Which when you're kind of cutting studs or castrating, that's what you do. You basically rope their front feet, trip them over upside down, and when he's upside down, you rope his back feet and stretch him out so he can't move. It's not the best way of doing it. It's hard on the animals. We don't like doing it. So we just kind of do it once a year. And it's kind of nice. Rocky, he knows that it has to be done, Rocky, and he makes a good living off of it. And he gets all of us stock contractors kind of right in the spring. It's a good little deal for him to just bing, 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 kind of work his way through all of us guys. And then we're taken care of for the year. We don't got to worry about it. You see the odd one that might grow a little bit faster, but for the most part, kind of just once a year, which is nice, thankfully, because it's a pain. It's a pain. It's a lot of work. Any other questions? Perfect. How about that? No, you guys were excellent. Those are some good questions today.